Hi, Cassie.
Hi, Caitlin.
This is PNW, Haunts and Homicides.
Tis.
It is. We're feeling old-timey, I guess.
Are we?
A little bit. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll
Tis.
see.
I say that all the time. I don't freaking know why.
Until we jump in the pool in a little bit, and then we won't be feeling so old-timey.
Yes.
Our ladylike manners will be going out the window.
Yeah, they are. Don't come over here. Oh my god, these are hard.
Yeah, I mean, they've literally never been used.
Caitlin got this beautiful new deck. Oh, while I'm shuffling, why don't you tell us where we got this deck?
Oh, yes. It's a fabulous story. So we have a lovely fan and friend who gifted us a Modern Witch tarot deck, which is going to be, I think, my new go-to for all of the true crime cases.
It is beautiful. We'll have to post pictures.
Oh, we for sure will.
It's a beautiful color. Like, I love this, like, blue, like, teal color.
I love it.
It's so good. And the pictures are amazing. I'm having a really hard time shuffling this deck.
It's brand new, though. Let's be clear. It is tough to shuffle these. And true to form, I was like, my hands are too small. Cassie, you do it.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. All right. Do you think that's shuffled enough, or should I go one more time?
I think we've got it.
Okay. So you
I'll
split
cut those babies.
or cut it.
Let's see.
I always say split. Like, it's called cutting. Come on.
I feel like I'm really drawn to this card.
Okay. You're drawn to it.
Yep.
Just go for it.
Go for it. Okay. It's 3 of Wands.
And it's upside down towards
the reverse.
you. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Wait, whose turn is it to read?
Who is doing this? Who is in charge here?
And as you guys know, I'm not the best at reading, so I might pass it off to her. We'll see. I'll give it a go, and if it doesn't sound good, you might hear Caitlin reading it.
Oh, no.
Not good?
Oh, yeah. Do you have your book? I didn't bring my other deck or book, and this, I did not realize, doesn't really have the interpretation in the reverse.
It doesn't?
No. Look, okay. So, okay, I'll read this to you, and then we just have to pretend it's opposite day.
Okay.
3 of Wands says, standing solidly on earth, you've got your wands for support, and you're contemplating your plans. You're working hard and getting ready for the future. It's working. You've got a solid strategy, so all you have to do now is put it into action.
Interesting.
Okay, what stuck out to me right away, though, is that if you're thinking about this in, like, the reverse, standing solidly on earth, and in this case, we're not going to be standing solidly on earth. Oh, dear. Okay, I'm not going to say anything else.
Okay. It really doesn't have a reverse?
Mm-mm.
Is the 3 of Wands like a standard thing in a tarot deck?
Let's look her up. Okay, so this says, when the 3 of Wands appears reversed, it asks where most of your mental energy is being directed. On a future that has not happened yet, or the present.
Huh.
Oh, that's haunting.
Interesting. Is it speaking to you?
Yeah.
Aww.
A future that has not happened yet. Oh, yeah. Okay. Wow, this is a lot of interpretation on this.
Ooh, maybe we should start Googling.
Yeah. I feel like it's really interesting to get kind of multiple, like, layers of sort of insight on it. Let's see. This one looks actually really good. Okay, so the reverse meaning guide that I'm seeing here says returning travels, moving home, lack of foresight and planning, holding on to the past, haunted by the past, lack of confidence, self-doubt, restriction, failure, disappointed with choices or outcome, frustration, clipped wings, lack of progress or adventure or growth.
Ooh.
Failed long-distance relationship or a failed overseas trade or expansion. Says, in a general context, the 3 of Wands represents moving back home, returning from travels and homeland. It can indicate restriction, lack of progress. This is kind of more in that same vein. So this is wild.
Ooh. So you're going to tell us about it later?
Yes.
Okay. I can't wait.
Yay, I I can't wait to explain why this creepy card just totally ties into this case.
Yeah.
Oy.
Okay.
Okay. So today we have kind of a unique case in that it's been unsolved for a long, long time until very, very recently. And I wanted to get right on this and share this one because there's been a huge break and it's a really sad case. I'm going to let you guys know this one involves a very young child.
No, you're gonna fuck us up, aren't ya?
I'm gonna fuck you right up.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah, it's very sad, but I mean, there is ultimately a happy ending in that, like, how many years later now, spoiler, but we've identified this child.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
well, I mean, happy but not happy.
Yeah. I'm happy about how unhappy I am about this unhappy case.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
So, should we get into it?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add before you fuck me up this time. So.
No funny anecdotes to lighten the mood preemptively?
No, not today.
Fair enough.
Hopefully you're all feeling okay.
Yeah. Whew. So, this is a cold case from the summer of 1963.
Ooh.
And I'm waiting to see the look of recognition on Cassie's face when she figures this out.
What if I don't? I'm like,
you will.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't want to tell you how I know that you'll know because then you'll know what it is probably. But
okay.
A fisherman on Keene Creek near Ashland, Oregon, made a gruesome discovery while he was fishing. Yeah. He initially thought his hook had been caught on a blanket.
Stop it.
Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, how unfortunate, blanket, stuck in the creek. Unfortunately, he discovered the blanket was wrapped with wire.
No.
Not a great sign, of course.
No, it's not.
No, it's never good. That's not how most people leave their blankets in a creek or anywhere else.
No, mine are folded on my couch.
Yeah. Yeah. Inside this strange bundle was a young boy's body.
No.
At the time, the medical examiner was able to determine the child was approximately 1 to 2 years old and likely had Down syndrome. Yeah.
You're killing me already.
Sad. I know. This one is really heartbreaking. There are multiple dates that are listed for the date of discovery of the victim, which I thought was really kind of interesting. There's actually a lot of information about this case online. And so once we give you the name, you'll be able to do a little bit more deep dive if you're curious. But the dates are listed as either June or July the 11th, even July 23rd, depending on the source.
Huh. Interesting that they don't have it pinpointed down.
Yeah, it seems like that should be pretty easy to just nail that.
Right? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when his body was discovered, he had been dead for less than a year. But of course, his body was very badly decomposed given the method of disposal. So one thing to keep in mind is depending on how long ago this body had been disposed of, how long ago he died, it's very possible that the cold winter months may have preserved this body a little bit. But being disposed in water, obviously, you're just not going to stop the effects of decomp.
Yeah.
So, the time of his death was estimated to be sometime after October 1962. So, you're going into colder months in October down in Southern Oregon, and he's discovered in the summer of 1963.
Okay.
Though the cause of death actually couldn't be determined, it was classified as a homicide.
Well, yeah. You don't wrap yourself in a blanket and wire
right.
at,
Super
2 years
sus.
old or whatever?
Yeah. So definitely, they were pretty clear on that piece. Yeah. So back in 1963, dental records were not often used to identify such remains, but this case is actually going to help change that going forward.
Really?
He
had dental records at that young of an age?
Well, so it's not necessarily dental records in the way that you would think of it, like you're comparing it to somebody else's dental records. They're going to take what they can from the remaining dentition to see if there are any unique characteristics. Okay. And we're going to get into it, and I'm going to dental nerd all over the place.
Woo!
Yep.
Can't wait.
Here it comes. So the victim had unique characteristics that were believed would make it easier to identify him.
Okay.
One of his anterior mandibular teeth was bifurcated.
I don't know what the fuck you just said. You're going to have to explain.
Yeah, So that's bottom front tooth split with 2 roots for nerds of a non-dental persuasion.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So very interesting. Anatomically, that's not common, especially probably in someone that's that young. I remember from when I was working as a dental assistant, it's just not something that you would see super often.
Interesting.
Like I say, for somebody especially that young. So that was definitely unique. It was also believed that he had been well cared for prior to his death because of the clothing that he was found with.
No.
So he was found with a red long sleeve shirt with thin white stripes, gray corduroy pants, a cloth diaper and blue diaper pins, white anklet socks, and white jumping jacks shoes.
Oh my goodness.
So
cute.
pretty much the most adorable thing. Just the most.
I can't even.
Yeah. So here's what's really interesting is they were able to identify his clothing was purchased from the JCPenney in the Medford Historic Building.
Ooh, JCPenney.
Yeah.
That is a historical building.
Now it's a historical artifact, but... And the shoes, actually, they were able to identify had been purchased from the Norris shoe store downtown in Medford.
That's crazy that they could figure out where the shoes and stuff came from.
They were able to kind of track that down. That's wild to me. So what's surprising about this though is that with what seems like kind of a wealth of identifying information obtained through the forensic examination, it may come for me at least, it came as a bit of a surprise to hear that, sadly, his body was buried with the grave marker John Doe, name only known to God.
Oh.
Yeah. At the Hillcrest Cemetery in Medford. How can that possibly be? They have all of this, he's got unique dental characteristics. They know where his clothes came from. How can they not figure this out? And then I started to think about it. And I'm like, well, he's super young. Like you said, he maybe have been so young that he hadn't even seen a dentist. It's would he go to every dentist in a 100-mile radius and see if they've got this patient? And then, it was a lot more common to pay for things like clothing items and cash. So, very quickly, some of this stuff, while it seems like it should be these huge leads, it just kind of ends up in dead ends.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird that he's not on the missing persons list. Right. Well, I'm sure you'll talk about it.
We'll get to it.
Okay.
You have to be reported missing
to
show up on a list.
Who's not missing a little baby?
Yeah. Well, we'll get to it.
Okay.
And this is pretty new, and there's a little bit of information out there about kind of some of the circumstances surrounding what happened. But in the sense that we can't directly ask who we assume the perpetrator is at this point, we're not going to get a lot of validation or, vindication on, okay, what happened? Why did this happen? Some of the details surrounding it.
Great.
So, yeah. Sorry.
Hopefully we'll get to do an update with all of that shit.
I don't think so.
No.
Just the nature of how everything has played out so far. I just don't think that we're going to get enough information to really be able to know much more than what we do at this point.
From the 60s too. That's
Well, yeah. And so we're going to have more information that comes to light way later. But yeah, in the 60s, it was, there was not a lot of hope for us to be able to find more information. This is going to get pretty wild though. Because while the victim would, be buried as a John Doe, he would luckily not remain unidentified forever.
Good.
Yeah, good thing. So here's where things get real interesting and sciencey.
Ooh, I like sciencey.
Yeah. So I got real nerdy sciencey and dentally on you on the first piece.
I like it.
But yeah, it's really interesting how some of this forensic science has started to play some really interesting roles in cold cases and, even in cases that are more current. So
fuck yeah. You ain't getting away with it.
Yeah. No, honestly, this case just really goes to show you how it's like, it may take 60 years. Spoiler. But yeah, we're going to catch up to you. So in 2008, the body was actually exhumed so the DNA could be obtained from his femur. Oh. Unfortunately, there were no hits until very recently.
Very recently.
Very recently.
How recently, Caitlin?
Yeah. Oh, we'll get to it.
Oh, damn it.
So first, I want to tell you guys about the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They partnered with the Paragon Nanolabs in 2021 to update their original reconstruction of what John Doe's face would have likely looked like.
Oh.
So this was based on a CT scan of his skull and DNA phenotype tests.
I don't know what that means. Sorry.
Blank stare.
I was taking a sip of wine and I was just like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's wicked cool though. So because the CT gives us an overall reconstruction of his facial structure, and the DNA phenotyping gives predicted characteristics like eye color and even skin tone.
Holy shit balls. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is so cool. You know what that reminds me of? Have you seen Bones?
Yeah.
How that artist chick did like the facial reconstructions with her like all that technology shit she had.
It's a lot like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So, I mean, definitely in true crime and I would say just widely in the public, we've become aware that some of the shows out there like CSI and other like true crime or forensic shows might give us a false impression of like what's possible with technology and, you know, the scientific tools that we have at our disposal. This is a situation where it's exactly like how it was on TV.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
So these are things that were previously impossible to determine based on the level of decomp. So again, the eye color, skin tone, those were things they wouldn't have been able to accurately assess based on the level of decomp when the poor little boy was found. So I know I teased you and said he wouldn't remain unidentified forever. And I kind of buried the lead.
Yeah.
So want to go grab some lunch?
Fuck you.
So you know those at-home DNA tests?
Yeah. I've taken one, have you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I won't be committing any crimes.
Yeah, no. And hopefully all of your, like, if you have children, hopefully, like, they don't.
Just speeding.
Down the line. Yeah.
So here's yet another unidentified murder victim that we can actually credit his identification to one of these tests.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know, it's pretty cool.
I know people think they're like invasive and like, man, I don't want my shit recorded, but like this is awesome. If you're like a good person and you want things to be solved and shit, I mean, you never know. Like, you never know.
Things that we can find out through that. We definitely had, won't get into it. It's not the platform, but we found out some really interesting things about, you know, my dad's family through Ancestry.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. We've connected to, you know, basically like long lost relatives.
Oh, that
literally.
is so cool.
Yeah, very cool.
We should do an ad for fucking 23andMe, right? Whatever the other one is.
I did Ancestry. So I'm going to stick with that. Yeah. So we've heard about this happening in previously unsolved cases quite a bit in the news. I would say, you know, really recently, these stories aren't just making the rounds in true crime circles either. It's really big news the general public is starting to hear about on local and even national news outlets. You know, we've had some pretty infamous serial killers that are being tracked down through these memes. It's pretty awesome.
It is. I like it.
All right, I'm going to give you the sweet, sweet satisfaction now.
Okay.
The victim was Stevie Crawford.
Oh, Stevie.
And here's where there's so many wild parts about this case, but I think this is the craziest part. And this is, I think, how ultimately this case remained unsolved for so long. Because we see where, you know, crimes are committed in one place, you know, maybe bodies are disposed of in another. The criminal lives in a different area. So Stevie had family living in New Mexico.
Oh. Okay.
Wild,
that's pretty
right?
far.
So yeah, so I think that's how you kind of escape detection, because it's like, for all intents and purposes, I think that law enforcement is going to be looking at, kind of closer into the local community where this body is discovered, where they're assuming that the crime took place and probably this person lives.
Where was it again? I can't remember.
New Mexico.
No, where was the body found?
Okay.
Sorry.
Nope, fair question. I was like, you forgot already? I just told you.
Not that bad, okay.
He was found by a fisherman on Keene Creek. It's near Ashland.
Ashland.
Yeah, and so remember the clothes have been purchased in Medford, so they're thinking, clothes are purchased here. He's,
those are like
his
small
body's disposed
towns,
of in a, relatively close area. So it would make sense that you wouldn't necessarily be thinking, like, New Mexico would not have been my first guess.
Yeah, like, why would you drive all the way to Ashland?
There's nothing leading them there at that point. So, but we'll get into that. We'll kind of get a little bit of an explanation on, like, what the heck? His family lives in New Mexico?
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely interesting. So, okay, I'm dying here.
Okay.
Cassie.
Stop dying.
Have you figured out?
I think so.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, tell us.
So I told Cassie she was definitely going to know this case, and we made it pretty far. And I'm not sure that she's putting it together.
I think I know. I'm
going to show her the title.
I don't want to do it, though. Yeah, the boy in the bundle.
Boy in the bundle. So this case was actually referred to as the boy in the bundle while he remained unidentified. So it's a super sad case. I just want to remind everyone that if they want to email us, they can thank Cassie for sending me this case.
I'm sorry.
The darkness resides in her.
Oh, I can't remember where I got it from. I think
research.
one of my friends sent it to me.
Thank you, friends.
Michelle? Michelle, did you
did you do this to us?
She did. What a bee.
Oh, Michelle.
Thank you,
really
Michelle.
love you. Hey, Michelle, I have a question for you. Did we just become best friends?
Yes. I answered for her.
Perfect.
She's gonna love
Velociraptor.
Do you want to do karate in the garage?
Yup.
Okay, we're done.
Okay. So much room for activities. Okay, now
we're done.
Actually done. Okay. In 2009, local news interviewed the Jackson County detective who had been so determined to identify this poor sweet baby. His name was Colin Fagan. He told them, "We are not interested in prosecuting this case. We have a responsibility to identify the unidentified remains, and that's what this case is all about."
Yeah. I mean, it would be nice to figure out what happened, but it's good to know who it was.
Right. Yeah, we just want ultimately to be able to provide some relief to any remaining family members who maybe had no idea where he was or what had happened to him. Oh, God. Yeah, I know, it's devastating. So what we find out here is that they were able to communicate with his family. They obviously were able to locate them. The family confirmed that Stevie did, in fact, have Down syndrome. They told detectives a disturbing story about his unusual disappearance. Apparently, Stevie's now deceased mother returned from a trip to report to her family, only that they wouldn't have to worry about Stevie anymore.
The fuck?
Yeah. I'm gonna let that sink in
what
for
do
just
you
a
mean
second.
Worry about him?
Yeah. Oh no. Don't worry about him.
Like, yeah, exactly. Why wouldn't you worry about him? They want I can't think of words.
My jaw dropped down to the floor when I read that.
Like, of course you're gonna fucking worry about him. It's a baby.
Yeah, and at that, like, definitely a child that is dealing with some additional challenge because of, his Down syndrome.
Yeah,
but he does have, you know, remaining family, but I think this is really sad for the family, I'm sure, you know, to find out decades later that Stevie was murdered.
Yeah.
And I think the assumption at this point would kind of have to be, and you know, I'm interested to see how the case develops and see if they're able to kind of provide more information regarding, you know, maybe there are some extenuating circumstances and it's not the mother who committed the crime, but I can't see that this slices any other way.
Yeah, just from that statement alone, like, of course she might be like mentally ill. I'm sure there was things going on. I'm sure she didn't just want
But whether or not the crime was perpetrated by her, it's pretty damning.
Yeah.
So I would normally hope they assumed that the child had been surrendered in a safe haven state.
But why?
Well, you know, I would have, that was the first thing that jumped to my head. I thought, well, maybe the family just thought that, you know, she was able to, you know, take him to a fire station, you know, something like that. You know, they were able to, you know, find a better situation for Stevie. You know, maybe this is for the best if, you know, she's not capable of or doesn't desire to raise a child that, you know, has Down syndrome.
I mean, I feel like I don't know, go to your family first. I mean, maybe she did. Maybe she did go to her family and they didn't want any part of it, which is, I'm trying to see like,
this one's a really
other
tough
side
one
of this.
Because, you know, all we have is kind of assumptions that we can draw based on sort of what, you know, what we think happened, the little bit of information that we have to this point. But I want to go into this a little bit because what I learned was that there's a lot of confusion and maybe a lack of information around what exactly is a safe haven state. So this is where I really dug in deep, and I probably did almost as much research about what a safe haven state is, kind of the specifics around it, details and stuff, as I did for the case directly related to Stevie. A safe haven state allows a parent or other guardian, depending on the state, to remain anonymous and to be shielded from criminal liability and prosecution for child endangerment, abandonment, or neglect in exchange for surrendering the baby to a safe haven.
Okay.
So this can be a number of places. It depends on the state. It can be hospitals or other care facilities. Sometimes that's a police or a fire station.
Yeah.
There's a number of places where if you have this information, if you know enough to be able to, you know, the wherewithal to be able to, you know, understand or to know about that, where you can safely surrender a child so that, you know, hopefully they find the care that they need.
Yeah, hopefully we would do it before it got to like a neglect point.
Right.
But
yeah,
you know,
I think that what the law is basically trying to do is ensure that even if there is maybe preliminary neglect, getting the child out of that situation is better than trying to shield that and keep it a secret. So it affords protection so that parents will hopefully do the right thing.
Yeah, and like try to get help for their child and not just like, oh, I'm going to be prosecuted for this. I better just get rid of it.
That fear would drive you to do something pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Right? So, which I think is, for me, that's the most devastating part of this case.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to tell you a little bit more about kind of the background around the safe haven laws, and maybe this sheds some light. And so I'm going to get into it.
Okay.
A lot of this information I obtained from for the love of God. So a lot of the information that I obtained was from childwelfare.gov. So even though now, as of present day, every state and U.S. territory, including Stevie's home state of New Mexico, should have some version of this law on the books, it appears that most states didn't provide this protection until late 1999 to the early 2000s, depending on the state.
Wow. Okay.
So at the time that poor Stevie, you know, was murdered and then his body was disposed of in the creek, this wasn't something that you could do. You could not safely give up your child and not worry about being prosecuted.
Oh, no.
So I did a little bit of research about the specifics in several states. I kind of focused in on the Pacific Northwest, but I also looked at some of the U.S. territories. And honestly, I was left with a distinct impression you might need a law degree to decipher when, where, and how this law might actually protect you as a panicked parent.
Oh.
And that's really scary and really sad.
Yeah, it is.
I was honestly in tears by the time I got to the point of taking my notes regarding the safe haven laws. And of course, none of this in any way excuses what we assume. Again, this is alleged, what we assume were the actions of the mother. But I can't help but wonder how things might have been different in this and probably many other cases if these laws had been enacted across the nation sooner.
Yeah, and easy to fucking understand.
Right. And so this was really interesting because I don't necessarily, and call me crazy, but I don't typically think of Texas as a particularly progressive state, but they were the first state to enact this legislation. So,
wow.
Yeah. So pretty cool. I mean, I think definitely anything that helps to protect, a child's life, that's a good measure. It's worth looking at.
Well, I mean, those southern states, they like to protect children.
Yeah.
Unborn or not.
They got that going for him.
At least there's that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And this, again, I kind of want to circle around. I don't want to place a lot of blame on other people that were tangentially maybe involved in this case, like the family.
Yeah.
I just would have had so many follow-up questions based on that single line that's supposed to explain away the mother returning from this trip without her child.
For sure. I mean, it is kind of a hard place because, like, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah,
but you don't want to get
to him.
Maybe you don't want to fucking know. Like, you don't want that on your mind because then you might have to turn in a family member, and that's fucking hard too. So,
yeah, I mean,
it's just
you don't want to know, or maybe you just you accept that you think, okay, she's basically adopted him out, or you're optimistically thinking.
Want to think the best.
Again, I really don't want to slam the family. I think it's hard to know where they were coming from, but just from my perspective personally, I just would have that wouldn't have set well with me.
No.
I would have been pretty upset that, like, this is something you just decided to do without even telling the family, whatever that was, and I would want to know what it was, and
where's the baby?
Right. I struggle with that.
Yeah.
But again, I think, everybody has different perspectives, and, without knowing a little bit more or, speaking to the family directly, I just think we can't really understand where they're coming from. So, the detective, Colin Fagan, said that the family intends to have Stevie's remains returned to them in New Mexico so that he can finally be buried in a family plot.
Oh, he's going home.
He's going home, and he's going to be buried on a family plot, which I just think that's a really touching end to this story. It's deeply, horrifically sad, but...
Yeah. That's great.
So I just think it's wild. After literally nearly 60 years, we have not only figured out who this victim was, we were stumped on that for, like I said, the better part of 6 decades. And we've identified him. We found his family. He's going to get to go home.
That's amazing.
So I feel like going back to the tarot card that we drew, in the reverse, it says returning from travels and homeland. It can indicate restriction or lack of progress.
Restriction?
At one point it basically indicated like a lack of growth or clipping of someone's wings.
Aww.
I just feel like it's really telling.
And he was like freaking tied up, right?
Yeah, it definitely speaks to the restriction. I think the frustration that's outlined in the card, or failure, I feel like that clearly relates to, possibly at least, the mindset of the caregiver, his mother.
Yeah.
So,
Or like maybe she was feeling like restricted by her child and
So, I mean, one of the other interpretations of this, kind of depending on the context that we're asking, for a little bit of insight, is haunted by the past.
Ooh.
So I feel like this case in particular is everything about it. It's coming to us, literally haunting us from the past.
Yeah,
how many decades later we're, finding this and identifying this poor boy.
Ooh, I got the chilly willies.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And oh my God, Cassie.
Yeah.
Cassie just pointed out that in this picture, it actually shows little sailboats on the water.
Aww.
So I think I really like this new tarot deck.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And and the fact that it came up with something with water, with like someone looking out over the water, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it looks like very much it could be like a maternal figure looking out over the water.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oof. Creepy.
Yeah.
Man,
it's
guys.
interesting how dead on some of these have been. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to see, if anybody else has kind of some feedback on kind of what they think some of the meanings might be on the readings that we're getting. So.
Oh, yeah, that would be a cool thing to hear is like your guys' interpretation of the cards that we pull.
Yeah. Hit us up. You know where to find us. I think this story ends on a really good note.
Yeah.
So I know this was really dark, and I appreciate you guys, sticking it out with us.
Hopefully you're still there.
Yeah, but I really do think it ends on a good note.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything better to say.
It's hard. It's hard to know what else to say about this case.
Yeah.
It's wild.
That is insane. I really hope that they figure out what happens though. Like take the next step, figure out.
I think that because they're not interested in prosecuting at this point and the mother has passed, I just don't see that there's anything as far as like the legal system that's going to come out of this in terms of like charges, or I don't think that we're going to see a lot more investigation.
Yeah. I just think like it would be worth it to investigate, because what if it wasn't the mother? Like, what if it was someone else?
Right. And I do think that's an interesting angle. I mean, it's very possible that, maybe she was unfortunately wrapped up with a unsavory romantic partner that committed this crime, and she was too embarrassed to tell her family or too scared.
Yeah.
I mean,
and he could still be, he or she, and they could still be alive and fucking walking the planet. So
yeah, I mean, it's a tough one just because I feel like we've got a lot of information about Stevie specifically. We've got a lot of information about the condition of his remains, about the items that he was found with, but not a lot else. So I mean, the really tragic thing to me is I think it's I didn't include this because it's a really sad detail to me personally, but I think I'm going to share it because it does definitely confirm, as if there were any doubt, that this was a homicide. So he was found in the creek in the blanket. It was wrapped up with wire, but we do know that there was a purposeful effort to conceal the body because he had been wrapped in the blanket with these cast iron molds.
What?
So they're very heavy. It was obviously the intent to sink the body to avoid detection.
Jesus.
So again, that's, I think the wire in and of itself probably would have, confirmed that, this definitely doesn't look like a drowning or, some sort of an accident, but those cast iron molds really seal the deal for me.
Damn, that's crazy. How did it get away from the molds and like it floated to the top?
So here's the thing is I was kind of wondering, well, wait, if there's these cast iron molds, how was this body discovered? How was Stevie ever found? But here's the thing. So this is a fisherman. He's got something on his hook. So the cast iron molds were inside the blanket. It was still weighing it down, but his hook got caught. Oh, and he's applying force to basically bring this up. So honestly, thank you to this fucking fisherman for unearthing this.
Like that, like the fucking chances of that.
So it's wild.
That is nuts.
It's wild. Yeah. It's definitely... That's the darker part of the case, and I just wasn't sure if we'd go there.
That is interesting, though. That's really interesting detail, and
it is, and it's just such a dark case that I just wanted to, wherever I could, just kind of lighten it up. And I was like, it's very clear just from the wire wrapped around the blanket that, you know, and the police never indicated that there was any suspicion that it was an accident. So I didn't want to lead with that, but here we are.
Yeah. Do you think that they'll ever figure out, like, did the science get good enough that they'll figure out how he died? Like
You know, that was one thing that I did kind of wonder about. I think at this point, unless they can really take a look at some of the notes from the autopsy findings, I'm just not sure if they'll be able to. I mean, he was so badly decomposed even back then that I'm not sure that referring to those notes would do them any good, to be honest. And definitely the state that his remains would be in at this point, I don't see that happening. Man. I'm certainly not an expert, but
it just brings me back to Bones. Like freaking Brennan would be able to figure it out. So.
Yeah, and I mean, part of me just wants to say, you know what? Let's not speculate further on that, because there are some pretty dark places that my mind goes in terms of what his cause of death might have been, just because of the nature of how he was found.
I don't want to think about it. I want to think that he was passed before he was thrown in the river.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. I don't want to think that the wire was, you know, wrapped around it to keep him from being able to struggle free. Joseph and Mary. Yeah, it's a really tough one. I am just really glad that this comes to, you know, somewhat of a happy conclusion in the end. I don't know what more you can say about the case. So I mean, definitely will keep you guys updated if I happen to stumble across any updates. I'd like to be able to provide anything else that we can. We'll see. I'm going to be in Medford next weekend.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. So if there's any possibility of, you know, I don't know how I would get information on the streets, but yeah, I just
go start interviewing everyone there.
Yeah.
Hey, have you heard of this? And they'll be like, the fuck is your problem, lady?
Is the JCPenney still open? I got people to see. God. Yeah. No, I'm not an investigative reporter. I'm not going to be like night crawling all over the place, but it's kind of interesting because we've had this trip planned for a little while, and then this case sort of fell into my lap and just felt very, I don't know, it felt very like ominous in a way. Like, here I am, I'm already planning on going to Medford, which isn't probably a super typical touristy
I was wondering, like, why are you going to Medford? Are you going to In-N-Out? Is that why?
I'm sure we'll end up at In-N-Out. I'm not going to say that's the reason for the trip. Definitely not. But
you want to know something funny?
Yes.
My next episode is around that area as well. So
shut up.
Yeah, kind of weird.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I got to try to find out what it is.
So weird.
Because Cassie is that kid that wants to wait to open her presents on Christmas Day, and I'm that kid that like finds them in the closet and tries to put them back perfectly.
But then you have to act surprised. I hate doing that.
Yeah, you know what?
That's
I can pull that off.
I'm not good at it.
So another funny. We're just gonna roll with the funnies because I feel like we need it this week.
We need a little relief.
Yeah. So one year, my brother and I actually found our Christmas presents.
Oh shit.
Well, I don't think we found all of them. We found a good chunk of them.
Is your mom gonna listen to this?
Yeah, she knows this already. She knows this. And you'll okay, I'll get there.
Should we get her for her input?
Ma'am! No, so we found our presents, and we know how meticulous my mother is. She quite literally is someone who has what you would call like classic OCD. So we thought we put them back exactly as they were. I mean, for young kids, I think we did our best.
Yeah.
But
You're never going to get it right.
No. So then, I think we thought we got away with it, and it was maybe a day or two later, and she and my dad sat us down, and they were questioning us like True Detective style.
Someone must have broken in. I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened.
How old were you guys?
I think I was probably like 8 or 9, and Cody would have been like, I don't know, like 5 or 6. So yeah,
Man.
so we totally caved. We totally just crushed under the pressure.
Who caved first?
You know what? Honestly, I don't remember at this point. But yeah, we caved hard. And we were like, oh my God, we're so sorry. And our parents threatened to take the presents back because, well, this is just, it's pretty egregious. As far as kid crimes go.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do an episode on kid crimes.
Oh, shit. So I have a big question for you. And if there's any children, hopefully there's no fucking children listening. If there's any kids listening, earmuffs.
Like 13 and up, maybe.
Right. But I love how we're like cursing and everything and talking about murder. But I'm like, this you need to cover your ears for. Were you wondering why Santa didn't have your gifts? Why your parents had your gifts?
I believed in Santa Claus for probably longer than a lot of kids, but I think at that point I was like, the presents are right here. Like, I know who bought them.
No Santa.
Yeah, it wasn't, yeah.
Your poor brother. His just whole world was crushed at way too young.
Well, so I don't know how most people do Santa for their kids, but my parents always did gifts from them, and then Santa brought us usually, like, stuff, like, there was additional presents, but it wasn't, like, everything came from Santa.
Yeah, that's true. One special
that,
Santa gift.
I want my kid to thank me.
Right.
Selfishly, I want them to be like, thanks, Mommy. Not like, thanks, Santa. I'm like, not even real.
Santa didn't go through the hell I had to go through finding you that special thing.
Tickle me Elmo.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, my little brother had one.
Yeah, that was crazy.
It was fucking creepy.
Drove people to crazy lengths to get those toys.
He also had a Teddy Ruxpin. Which is the creepiest little fucking thing.
Lots of creepy toys.
Oh my God.
Okay, you guys. Do you feel better yet?
I hope so.
I feel better.
Hope you guys feel better.
I'm so happy for Stevie.
Yeah. Well, Stevie. That is such a cute fucking name, too. Like, stop it.
Stop it right now. Okay, everyone.
I guess we're gonna go.
Yeah, we're gonna go.
Have a creepy ass day.
So for all of you that are listening, if you have any true crime or paranormal stories that you want us to share, maybe with the whole Pacific Northwest.
Yes, we would love to read them on the pod.
Yeah, we will read them out loud. Email us at pnwhauntsandhomicides@gmail.com. It's all spelled out, no special characters, super duper easy peasy.
Also, if you would like to follow us on Facebook or Instagram, it is at PNW Haunts and Homicides, the same thing as the email. It's all spelled out, no special characters or anything.
Bitchin'.
Keep your friends close and your chapstick closer. And your enemies in a ditch. Or something.
We don't have any enemies.
Of course not. But if we did.
Watch out.